I am here with one of my favorite people that I have been working with. Her name is Brandy Wong, and I know you're going to love her too. She is an operations expert and the founder of Totally Branded. And that's how I found her is I saw a video of her and I'm like, I got to chat with her. And I did. When when I was trying to make my appointment with her, it took me to another person. I kept canceling until I got in with Brandy. Sorry, Brandy. I hope other people don't do this to you, but I had to talk with you. And I'm so glad I did. You know, like when you find the right people who you want in your circle that you're working with, it changes everything. And that's what happened when I started working with Brandy. And so it's a great kind of a great partnership in working together to get things done quickly. And it's been a lot of fun too. So let me tell you more about her again. So she is the founder of Totally Branded. It's a firm that has partnered with over 180 companies to close the gap between revenue growth and real profitability. Her operations team integrates themselves into your business, building the systems and that turn six-figure hustles into seven-figure companies. And I will attest to that, not to oversell you, Brandy, and sound like I'm sucking up, but I do love working with your team. You have it so dialed in, and it has been such a pleasure to work with you. So I look forward to this interview. You ready?
Me too. I'm ready to. And it's also been a pleasure to work with you as well. We love you here at Totally Branded.
Brandy, tell us how to fix your broken sales operations before you scale.
All right. So fixing your broken sales operations before you scale starts with accepting that scaling a broken system doesn't fix it. It just makes it a much bigger mess. Right. So most founders think they have a sales problem and they don't. They have an operations problem 9 times out of 10. So there's no clear pipeline stages, no follow-up process, no idea where deals are actually dying in their process. And so the first thing I do with most of my clients when they have a broken sales operation is we're looking to close that gap. So what we do is we map out what's really happening versus what they think is happening. And there's always the gap, right? And so what we do to close that gap is we build the structure, we clean up the CRM, we define where the lead hands off, right? And then we scale that. Otherwise, you're kind of just paying for more people to repeat the same broken patterns.
And that's why we need you so badly. I agree with you. You know, with what we have in our, I've been running businesses for so many years, so many decades now, that with what you do, it's not my zone of genius. I hate doing that, but I know how imperative it is. And so I can build it myself. I know how to do it. I've done it. But to have someone who that's what they do so almost in your sleep, Brandy, I feel like when I talk to
Yeah.
you, you're like, okay, here's what we do. Boom, 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 and it's done. It moves your business so much faster. Right. So with what we're doing, like with what we do in Fuel the Fire and in Fire Coach, it's about growing your revenue in your business and doing it in the most thoughtful way. Right. And the most optimized way. And so that's why we have our tools to help you with sales and refining the process. But you have to have that strong system to magnify everything.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yeah, 100%. If you don't have that system, then it's just going to keep breaking. You won't get the results that you're looking for, and the cost will always be the same or more.
or more.
Mm.
Brandy, as you know, I've been running companies for so long. I've worked with a ton of other entrepreneurs. So, my
Mm.
question to you is how do you transition from a founder-led sales team or sales? How do you transition from founder-led sales to a scalable team?
That's a good question. So, transitioning from founder-led sales to a scalable team means that you have to get everything that's in your head about what you know about your own sales process out of it before you hand anything off, right? So, founders close deals because they know the product, just like in the back of their head. They know it the best, right? They've heard every single objection, and people just automatically trust them because they're the founder. But that doesn't really transfer to a new hire if you don't get everything that's in there out of your head, right? You need to have your process written down. You want to write down all your objection handling, your talk tracks, and how you qualify your leads and what a good fit for a lead actually looks like. Then you can, like, once you have all of that down, then you can finally hire out for this position. And we actually started doing that in the past 2 years, where we've started to hire salespeople, but only after I got everything out of my head. And now everyone on my sales team kind of talks like me, builds trust like me, and handles objections similar to me with their own little personal twist. And I found that that's given me the best results, right? But the transition usually breaks down when the founders pass off the role before they've built their sales playbook, right? And that's a mistake. So always make sure that you do the playbook first and then hire the person.
That goes right into what I just had a discussion with another person who I work with, Karthik Pavada, and we talked about that. We talked about when you first start a company, you want to be doing the sales. Unless you're a huge company and you have a lot of investment and
Yeah,
the bandwidth, then you can afford to make some mistakes. But
right.
if you are a smaller company, most of the companies that we talk to are kind of that SMB, small to mid-sized companies, and you are the founder, I have found to be the most effective is to start off by at least doing the first 25 sales, right? So you hear what the buyer is objecting to. You're hearing the things that maybe you thought in theory was going to work, but they don't, right? Maybe it's the wrong product market fit. There's so much intel that you gain from being a founder and doing the sales in the very beginning. However, if you want to grow, that's where you come in, right? Brandy, that's where you need the operations. That's where you need to put in the objections that you constantly hear as a founder and what's working, and then the flow that you see that is the most advantageous for sales. And that's a system that's part of your playbook. We talked about playbooks earlier. The other thing that you brought up is you allow your salespeople to put in their own little stamp of uniqueness. And I think that's really critical because it creates more authenticity and it puts them
Yeah.
more at ease. And you can tell when a salesperson is more at ease. And I think there's a trust level that happens too, don't you? Like when you're talking to
Yeah.
someone who they're not just reading a script. They may be following a flow, but they can bring in their own personality. They can bring in their own ideas without going too far off. But I 100% agree with you that when you are ready to scale and you've already done your testing and you know you have product market fit and you know what's working and you have your playbook in place, that's the
Mhm.
time that you really need to operationalize everything so that you can hand it off to a team. And that's where you really see that hockey stick of growth.
Yes, exactly. You got it. That's exactly it.
All right, Brandy, I love this part of it. Let's talk about building a predictable revenue engine. How do you let's take Fire Coach. I'm just going to come out there and be totally transparent. Fire Coach is a newer company that we have launched, that I have launched, and we are pre-seed right now. But let's talk about some of the things that you and I have talked
Mhm.
about how are we going to create this revenue engine, which can also at the point that we're at be a go-to-market type of
Mhm.
process. Those are two
Mhm.
different things, but they do mesh in this case because we're pre-seed and we're just getting out there. So talk to me kind of about your thoughts when you're helping a company that is pre-seed, so they don't have a ton of funding yet, and helping them build out how they are going to have a more or less predictable revenue engine.
Yeah, so to start building a predictable revenue engine for a pre-seed company, say for example, your company, Fire Coach, the first thing that you want to do is you want to start working the problem backwards, right? And so you need to see the goal. So let's say, for example, next month you want to have the revenue of 50K, right? So you want to look at how many leads do you need to close for that? How much are you charging? You need to think about how many discovery calls does it take for you to get one closed leads. You want to look at all of those metrics so that way you can plan exactly how much volume you need to do as well. So say that your main way of getting new leads is outreach, right? So how many messages are we going to send out to be able to get this certain amount of discovery calls to get this many amount of closes to get your 50K? And so to figure that out, the first thing that you always have to do that people always want to skip is testing, right? So you plan it out, plan it backwards. These are the steps that I need to take, or these are the numbers that I need to achieve. And then you got to test it. So you got to send as much as you possibly can to get that volume. Once you get your first discovery call, then you figure out how many outreach messages did it take for me to get this discovery call? And then how many of these discovery calls do I need to take to get my first close? And from there, you can duplicate and you can decide, do I need to hire somebody to kind of manage this process? How many people can I bring on to manage this process, right? And then you want to look at your costs. Is there anything that I can automate? And so working that problem backwards is the key to building that revenue engine.
And it's exactly what we've been doing, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that you said testing, because I will tell you from helping so many businesses and growing our own, what you think is going to happen, it never happens that way, right? It always takes longer. I don't care who it is that you're working with. It always takes longer. It just kind of sucks. So
Yeah.
you just kind of have to factor that in, right? But you also mentioned that you have to kind of come up with assumptions, right?
Yeah.
So you finally get that discovery call, however you may have gotten it. Let's say you decide that you're going to do some pay-per-click
Mhm.
advertising. How much did you have to spend? Where was it? Through Facebook? Was it through Google AdWords? How did that come in? Or are you doing something more organic? You're getting on
Mhm.
interviews, you're hosting interviews. There's so many different ways of building traffic, right? And trying to get a discovery call. So what's working the best for you? And then
Mhm.
once you figure that out, figuring out how can you maximize that, right? How
Yeah.
can you double down? And that is where often it is worthwhile to invest. Maybe you
Yeah.
do want to hire 2 to 3 people to help you if you know that that's working. But always, what I tell my clients is keep an eye on what the potential revenue is. Don't get caught up in the minutia of being concerned with what's outgoing, unless you can't pay unless you're going to lose your home and you can't feed your kids. But I do like to have some money set aside so that you are prepared to invest in this, so you're not wasting your time. Especially women, not to pick on women, but there's a fear factor that comes in here, and
Yes.
they get scared of investing in other things to help them grow. But what they're missing is
Mm.
how much faster they can get there. And that's what you're talking about, is that's how you build out a predictable revenue engine. Is you want to have some type of formula, some type of process, some type of playbook that you're using, and you're paying attention to the metrics, and that's how you're going to get more successful. It may not be perfect, it may not be pretty, but as long as you're following a process, you're going to get there a lot quicker.
Another thing I'm going to add, to be able to create a very profitable revenue engine for, say, a pre-seed company, right, is really important that to test, yes, and start building out that system. But once you figure out what works to bring in your leads and to close the leads, you have to then make it perfect, right? And so a lot of people skip that step, or they try to make it perfect at the beginning, but then they never actually launch the campaign to bring in more leads. So when you start with building the revenue engine, be scrappy, like put it together as fast as possible, try to get as many numbers as fast as possible. And then once you figure out the path that is helping you get the most amount of leads, then you can go in and refine it. It's necessary to refine it, because if you don't refine it and you try to duplicate it, then it becomes very messy, and then your operations start to break down, because you
Well
cannot
said.
2x a broken system.
Oh, okay. There's a soundbite right there. That is so, so true and well said. And with that, Brandy, thank you so much for all your wisdom. You have been such a godsend, really, to helping us with launching Fire Coach, and just not helping me get out of my own head and building out these systems so well, and helping us grow as quickly as we are. Brandy, where can we find out more information about you?
You can check out my website, totallybranded.com. It's a play on my name. We don't do a lot of branding, only if necessary. You can find me on YouTube, where I share a lot of tips and tricks for operations and client acquisition and all that kind of fun stuff you might need in your B2B business. It's just Brandy Grace Wong. It's Brandie. DIE is very important. A lot of people misspell my name. And yeah, and then if you are interested in having any bottlenecks solved in your business that is holding back your revenue, then you might be interested in checking out our 7-day free trial. Go visit our site.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandy.
All right. Thank you so much. Love ya.